Thank you so much, Pete, for joining me today. I'd love to start with an introduction to yourself and Kudos as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for inviting me, Maddy. It's great to be here. So CUDOS is a layer one blockchain. My name is Pete, by the way. So let's take that back a little bit. My name is Pete Hill. I'm one of the co-founders here at CUDOS. And it's a layer one blockchain built within the Cosmos ecosystem. But the real focus of that is to provide Web3 developers, so whether they're the app developers, the protocols themselves. A lot of us the core team has come from a previous business, which was scaling data center and cloud platforms and environments for customers. And we wanted to take that kind of previous knowledge and turn it into a kind of software ecosystem where the whole world could become, part of this distributed cloud platform. So, the vision there is that anyone with a connected device would be able to contribute to this cloud and be able to, earn from this cloud as well. So that was the basis, the core of why we created the parent company, which is actually called CUDO Ventures, and then that's kind of rolled down into our blockchain ecosystem, which is with Kudos with the S on the end, just like my hat.
Could you explain, in a little more detail, the differentiation between CUDO and CUDOS, and how the two organizations, or I guess the blockchain and the organization, work together?
So CUDO is the parent company, but it's also the kind of product name for our distributed cloud computing marketplace. So CUDO Compute. And that's a Web2 accessible platform. CUDOS with an S on the end is the name of our blockchain, but it's also the name of our Web3 interface into that distributed cloud computing network. So it doesn't matter whether you're building a centralized application or a decentralized application, or if you're running a service within Web2 or running a service within Web3, you still need computing power, right? That's always going to be the case. But the options for Web3 is quite limited at the moment because it is still a nascent technology and it's growing. But for developers within that Web3 space, there's a need. There's not just a need, but there's also a psychology for more towards a kind of decentralized future in how their infrastructure is run as well, right? So first step for us was to say, well, here's a way that you can connect to all that cloud computing infrastructure around the world in a way that's native to Web3, i.e. connect to your digital wallet, be able to use the token that is native to you from that experience, so you're not having to convert it out into a different currency, and be able to spin up virtual machines to run your applications in a permissionless way, right? So no KYC, because we've already done the verification because you've connected your wallet and we've seen that you've got proof of funds. So that becomes a much more kind of native way for Web3. And then underneath the hood, rather than that just going straight into an Amazon AWS or Microsoft Azure, which then becomes a little bit counterproductive on the philosophical side, it's let's then distribute that out to multiple different underlying vendors across the world. And as we develop the kind of network and we build further out in the future, there is the case that even gaming PCs and other kind of consumer edge type devices will be able to benefit from the network as well. So that's just a matter of priority. We're heading that way. But yeah, it's just a matter of priority where we focus first.
I'm sure you're in your way there.
Yeah.
If we take a step back, how would you compare the traditional centralized cloud computing to what you're building on decentralized networks?
So centralized cloud computing would include the big incumbents, what we call the hyperscalers. So Amazon AWS, Google GCP, Microsoft Azure. There are others as well, but those are kind of the three main ones that we use. Now, they're centralized in the fact that they own their own hardware, right? So they scale their own hardware. Everyone is the customer to them in terms of they're the ones that bill in, they're the ones that serve their support, etc. Now, don't get me wrong, each of those three that I just mentioned have incredibly huge global networks of computing power, right? typically they will build quite close to the main traffic hubs. So if you imagine that London is a traffic hub, Paris, New York, Singapore, Hong Kong, and the reason for why they've done that historically is because this is where a lot of the kind of finance industries are. And therefore a lot of their kind of customer base coming from that banking, insurance, finance type world, where they do need to have that lower latency, so the quicker speed to the kind of financial markets or to the other major financial cities. And those main traffic hubs is where most of the fiber is and most of those kind of exchange points are. Now compare that to then you go to distributed. So distributed is the kind of point between centralized and decentralized, I would say. And distributed is where you can have multiple different of these service provider, so cloud vendors, if you like, around the world. So if we were going to do a kind of distributed hyperscaler, then we could use AWS with Azure, with GCP, and take advantage of all those. But we haven't. We've done it in a different way. So for CUDO, the way that we've done that is that we're connecting to all of the next set of providers down, right? So these are still very, very reputable companies, but they're offering us different locations, and that's a really important point. And they're offering us, much better economics that we can then pass on to the customers as well. So to give you an example of that, the supplier mix that's on our platform, on our network at the moment, are coming from, yes, we've got the kind of traditional type data center locations, near to traffic hubs, but actually the majority of that compute that we've brought on to the network is coming from remote, colder regions across Scandinavia, across the US and Canada as well, where there's renewable energy in abundance. And again, that comes back to our kind of ethos and our core focus at the beginning is how we make it more sustainable. So renewable energy, which could be coming from hydroelectric, geothermal, solar, wind, clean energy such as nuclear. There's innovative ones like gas flaring, where you're instead of releasing the methane into the air, you're actually capturing it and converting it into electricity. So it has a net benefit impact for the world, or positive impact for the world in that terms. And they have an abundance of renewable energy, but they also have very, very low cost power purchase agreements for that, because renewable energy tends to be less in these regions than fossil fuels, which is another tick in the box. And they're purposely built for these kind of higher density computing type environments. So, the equipment that we're running now draws an enormous amount of energy compared to the equipment that was, readily available 10, 20 years ago. And so you need much more kind of high density specific locations to be able to service these in. So that's kind of so distributed means that we can tap into all of those, right? Rather than being reliant on the single vendor. And our software interface is the bit that does all that connection. So from a consumer point of view, they just come in and they go, yeah, I want it in this region, and I want this machine built and it goes and builds that. Right? So it's still a single point for them to be able to manage it, but we do distribution back end. And then decentralized is kind of like the holy grail, right? This is so particularly within the Web3 space, this is what everyone wants to get to. And you've got the rise of DePIN, which is decentralized physical infrastructure network. That's not just kind of cloud infrastructure. That's things like Helium. Helium are these kind of Wi-Fi hotspots, if you like. So, and this gives a true way for anyone to be able to benefit from that network, because anyone is able to contribute their infrastructure to these networks, and it's accessible via paying in cryptocurrency or however that looks, but it's the network itself that's the most important part there in being classed as decentralized. Now, we're on our path to get to a decentralized network. Like I mentioned right at the beginning, we'd love to connect gaming consoles, we'd love to connect gaming PCs and in mobile phones in the future, and other types of devices. But it's a very, very different workload profile that can be sent to those types of devices. You haven't got the guarantee of bandwidth, the high levels of kind of physical security around that kind of computing equipment. Those devices may not be turned on all the time. Someone with, if you are connecting a mobile phone in the future, a mobile phone may be turned off, the battery might go dead. So it may be in a zone where there's just no Wi-Fi or 4G or 5G connection and stuff like that. So it's a very different type of workload you can send out. Right now, because of the sheer demand that's coming from the kind of AI vertical and video production vertical, we just decided that we would start with the kind of service provider environments and then build up to decentralization.
Progressive decentralization as Web3 matures is becoming more like prominent, like not even across like physical infrastructure projects, but across like the whole of Web3. Because I think like we almost went from like fully centralized to fully decentralized. Now you're seeing there's a difficulty with going fully decentralized. So I think it's like a good medium. And now I guess a more like personal question. Why or what interests you with all this work? And almost, I guess, in a sense, why do you do it?
Actually, one of the inspirations, I guess, for CUDO came in as early as 2011. AWS was only 5 or 6 years old, I think, and it was still relatively small compared to what they are now, but still relatively small there. And they were still trying to break through as cloud. We have this kind of saying in the DC industry that people still like to hug their tin, right? They wanted to be able to know that their tin was somewhere that they could go and visit it and touch it, and this is real and that's under my control. It's housed in a secure environment, but I've got access to it and I can physically see it. Right? So the kind of the educational and psychological jump for businesses to go, I'm going to hand it off to this platform and hopefully they do a good job of it, and it's a public cloud, but hopefully it's secure and other people and can't see what data's going over that. That was a real kind of jump forwards in sense, but it exploded, and as we've seen, cloud has been hugely successful, and it's still growing at an incredible rate, really. So our main kind of customer base in that business were kind of cloud service providers themselves, because we were our main product was the kind of co-location, which is providing the physical space for these service providers to be able to install their servers, right? So we were providing the space and power effectively. And one thing that we just saw across our entire network is an incredible amount of underutilization of all that hardware. So all these service provider environments, they're constantly building and expanding those environments for the peak of activity. But in the non-peak hours, that might drop significantly. Some service providers would tell you, oh, it drops to about 30%. Honestly, we've seen it drop to about 2 or 3%. And so you have this huge amount of underutilization, but they're still paying electricity. That equipment's still drawing electricity. They're still paying, footprint all 24/7. And so there was kind of, right, well, let's help these cloud service providers monetize those non-peak, resources, those underutilized resources. But that's also going to help reduce the waste amount of IT that's out there, right? So there's a really heavy carbon footprint in actually building these new servers in the first place. Most of the carbon footprint in the server's lifetime is actually in the building of it and the transportation of it, rather than when it's turned on within a data center. So if we can tap into what's already out there, then that's a better scenario for everyone. So that was one of the inspirations to start with, was like, how can we tap into spare capacity? Now, things have evolved, as I mentioned. The AI has exploded. They all need this highly specialized kind of GPUs, and they're in such demand. There really isn't any spare stuff out there, right? So, okay, so now how do we look at it? It's like, well, okay, the other thing, on that kind of sustainability path that we want is let's look at the data centers that are powered by renewable energy, and that became the kind of the next part. So if it's not spare capacity, because there isn't any spare capacity, then how is that capacity that we want to bring onto the network actually powered? If it's powered by renewables, then again, that's going to have a positive impact. So as those kind of two things combined kind of came together, and that was what kind of led us to CUDO.
So what is your current role within CUDO?
Yeah, so one of the co-founders here, but my actual role is more on the kind of sales, business development, kind of corporate development side of things. So it's I wear many hats. Today I've just got the one on my head, but yeah, I do wear many hats, and that's we have the CUDO compute ecosystem itself. We mentioned that there's a lot of kind of work happening within the kind of AI vertical. Just naturally, that's kind of where there's a lot of opportunity right now. But also the blockchain hat, CUDOS hat, and growing that ecosystem. I work on the fundraising side as well. I'm helping on the kind of within the marketing strategy and stuff like that. So it's great, and this is one of the things I love about working within a kind of startup. Even if we are kind of a late stage startup now, is that you do very much get involved in lots of different areas.
I think as a founder, your job is almost like there is no job description because your job is everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's, I don't want to get too geeky, but it's kind of like, I think of like founders as almost like the CPUs, right? So
yeah,
maybe different tasks, multitask. Well, you kind of, you don't really have a choice on that side of things. Then you get the dedicated teams of like GPUs, right? They can do, they just focus in, they do things very, very well in that area. And then you've got like those highly specialist developers, which are like Bitcoin mining ASICs, right? They do one thing, but they do it extraordinarily well with high efficiency. So yeah, I guess I'm a CPU within the company.
To be honest, I feel like I've kind of become the same, where you become like really good at a lot of different things. But sometimes I almost think that it like when you have that like diverse perspective, it means that you can almost bring value to different teams without having to be massively deep into those teams, because you have like you understand what's going on across all different areas.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. And we've got an incredible team. And I know I'm biased when I say that, but we really have got an incredible team. Everyone is driven by the same goals, very aligned. It doesn't matter whether it's developer, products, finance, marketing, sales. It's a very cohesive team, and there's a lot of kind of idea sharing, knowledge sharing that's throughout. And I guess there's platforms like Slack and everything that we all use now, which definitely helps that, especially if you're working remote, which we do. So it's important to be connected all the time and doing that. So yeah, very fortunate to be working with a great bunch of people, and just to see kind of what comes out of that development team, and what comes out of the marketing team and stuff. It's just very grateful for the team that's kind of around us.
That's good. And like one of the books I'm reading at the moment is called Hacking Growth. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
I haven't.
No.
Yeah.
But it's essentially this concept of how you get all these different teams working together to build different growth strategies, rather than just having like the marketing and sales team focused on building growth strategies. You actually get like the data team, the product team, the designers, the marketing, the business development, and you almost get them all working together and communicating. So one key focus is to build growth within products. So like trying to build like products that have virality within them. But it's also just to brainstorm more strategies. And then the core component is the data piece, where everything that you do has a data scientist behind it and has a real data-driven approach. So it reminds me a little bit of that open communication to like essentially grow outwardly, rather than just focusing on your like silo almost.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I mean, I would be kidding you if I said that we were like that from day one, right? So there's as a startup, so many things are happening that sometimes you just have to kind of take a step back, because you're always running. You go, oh, actually we could have done it this way, right? So we've made mistakes. I wouldn't believe any other startup that says they haven't made a mistake and they've got it all right from day one. It's just that's nonsense. So but that gets more and more efficient definitely over time. So if I was to take your example and kind of apply it to what's happened recently within CUDO, is we met up at the beginning of the year. So it was kind of it's more kind of engineering workshop day, if you like, where we wanted to go through the kind of business plan for Q1, Q2. We wanted to talk about what we want to achieve, and then it's like how do you help us to achieve that bit? Where does the data come in, like you said? So within that meeting, it wasn't just engineers. We had marketing in there, we had sales in there, we had product in there, we had data scientists. So everyone came together, and it's exactly that. It's like, right, these are the data points that we need to bring together to be able to make smart decisions, right? And this one is going to give us a smart decision here and here and here and here. And it's all about trying to drive those efficiencies in. But the idea of that is then to put it's the outcome of that is providing the end user, so the consumer in that case, with a better experience, better service, better products, and the virality, and everything you mentioned there. So yeah, it feels like we've taken that book, but we haven't read it yet. Or maybe they have read it. Maybe it's just me that hasn't read it.
No, I feel like the philosophy of the book is like commonly used today. And like, I think the book almost has a bit too much fluff within it. But I think like there are some really core principles within it that I've like applied. And I recently I was like speaking with a more traditional, I guess, Web2 corporate. And as I went in and started to understand what was actually happening, you do realize that as companies grow, they do become more siloed. And then you ask the marketing team what's actually happening on the product side, and they literally can't give you an answer. So I think while it's like probably very like obvious to us to build teams like this, there are some loads of organizations that do the complete opposite, which I think just has a worse effect. So talking almost about your priorities, what are you like specifically focused on for the next 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, we've brought everything in, so we've really kind of dialed down the different areas that we're working across, shall we say? We successfully launched CUDO Compute, which is the underlying distributed compute network or marketplace, in May of last year. The first kind of 6 to 7 months focus was really on kind of building the supply network, make sure that we had the right type of computing equipment in the right kind of renewable zones coming on, giving us locations and computing power. So that was kind of the initial focus there, and then we kind of flipped more to the demand focus towards the end of last year. So that the focus there is really to kind of drive growth, and to add the further functionality, which with each bit of functionality that we add increases the kind of audience type that we can reach, that we can appeal to, and an awful lot of kind of marketing and business development strategy behind there as well to really kind of grow the revenue and user base on that side of things. And then on the blockchain side, we actually launched the blockchain a couple of years ago. So that was a kind of basis of the kind of future strategy. But with our focus being on how can we provide the Web3 space with computing power, it still all comes back to that kind of computing core, right? That's our business, that's our identity, if you like. So the development on that, we had to get CUDO Compute live first, was that we wanted to release what we've now called CUDOs into cloud. So it's been given an official brand name. It's been launched. I think it was launched about 5 weeks ago now, 6 weeks ago maybe. And that's the smart contract access into that compute network. So people were able to connect their wallet. But it is essentially the same underlying network of compute. It's just a different front door, a way to be able to access it. And this time it's more native. So it's growth on both sides, whether that is a traditional cloud user or if that's a Web3 cloud user looking for infrastructure. It's just about kind of growing into those audiences, and there are differences between those audiences. So it's a different kind of a marketing approach, etc. But the core of it is still the computer cloud on me. So I'd say that's our key focus for 2024, is just to accelerate that, to grow that, and then we'll come up with quarterly OKRs and targets and objectives and everything to keep us on track for that and moving forwards. And then we'll go into 2025. But from the blockchain side of things, whilst that's our focus, it is a layer one blockchain. So that ecosystem needs to grow as well, and it will grow. So we have developer relations and people specifically focused on the Web3 side who are building partnerships with other blockchains that can use the compute, with dApp developers that can come and build directly on our blockchain. And the I guess the hook there is always that then they have direct access to this computing power. So yeah, we'd love to see the actual blockchain ecosystem grow in developers as well over the next year.
Interesting. And last question, because startups always ask this question, plus I love business development. With your BD hat on, how do you think about creating a BD strategy?
We have a business development strategy in place. We're locked into kind of which verticals we're targeting now, how we're going to approach them, what that looks like, what's going to give us, what's going to give them, what's going to give the network, etc. So all of that is happening in real time, where we've kind of got a strategy, and this comes back to those kind of quarterly OKRs, if you like. So we're coming into March now, aren't we? So the end of Q1, wow, that's gone really quickly. So at the end of Q1, we've got a couple of targets that we want to hit ourselves, which we're on course for. Actually, we're ahead of one already, and then we'll reset that every quarter to get to kind of the overall kind of milestones that we set ourselves. Have that kind of strategy, and then plan to the absolute. If you can, it's really important, because if you got that plan in place, then it's the whole team kind of buys into that, and they can see that progress, and your brain is trained to go, right, okay, we need to get this done, but you do have to be agile enough that if there's a slight pivot in there, might be a delay in development, for example, it might be just a big change in the market, in what people are looking for. So you have to be nimble enough to be able to kind of put that into the plan and keep it dynamic.
Yeah. No, I spoke to I think they were actually an AI team, and they were like, okay, they wanted some feedback on their business development strategy, and so I was like, what have you done? So they were looking to do cold outreach, and they were like, yeah, we've sent 10,000 messages, but we've only had 2 replies.
Right. Okay.
And it was like, what was the message you sent? And it was like one of the most generic sales messages.
Right.
And I think like what people like, that agile part that you're speaking about is like, if you're not getting responses after like 100 messages, like go back to the drawing board and try to like rethink the structure of the message.
I mean, it's a very good point. I think I've seen lots of, we all see our email boxes fill up, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
How many times do you see an email coming through just saying,
I know,
don't miss the opportunity to open this email, or something like, wow.
Yeah.
Now, I'm automatically going to delete that email, I'm afraid. You've kind of got respect for the person on the other end is very, very busy, right? And if you want to catch their attention, that might not be the best way to do it. So yeah, being able to test it, that didn't work. Let's reiterate, let's look at the data right behind the scenes. So, if you were to do a paid ad campaign, for example, and you doing it on certain keywords, and then you look at that data and go, well, that keyword didn't really work, did it? I mean, that's had 2 people look at it, and well, that one's had 1,000 people look at it, and that's led to this many signups, and so you really do have to kind of look at the data. We've got all of that data there now, right? All those tools are there, Google Analytics, Data Studio, all of the other kind of data tools are there now. So yeah, anyone that's watching, it is very, very important to kind of look at that on a weekly basis even, and go, right, this is where we need to kind of move it to.
And so if anyone wants to like support or contribute to, I guess, both the blockchain and the foundation, what is the best way to support you guys?
Yeah, sure. Well, come and join our community first and foremost. This is the best thing about the kind of blockchain space, is that it's just all community driven, right? So we've got a great community on Twitter. So just look up CUDOS. I don't know if is this a video or is this just an audio?
This is a video. So you've been doing some good advertisement.
So come across to CUDOS Twitter, or X, should I say. We're on Telegram as well. We're on Discord. We're on LinkedIn. So it's all the same name. If you're a user of big compute, if you're kind of running AI services, or you're incorporating AI into your business in some way, then come check us out, or go directly to our distributed compute network, which is CUDO Compute. and just reach out to us. We're a really approachable team. If there's any way we can help you, we will. So yeah, let's get connected.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pete.
You're welcome. Thank you.